Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Luke from InfoSecLuke. Today we're going to be looking at a certification that most people don't necessarily think of as cybersecurity related, but one that can actually help you get a leg up, and that's the PMP, or the Project Management Professional Certification from PMI. So stay tuned. So if you haven't had a chance yet to watch my first video, which kind of details how I got into cybersecurity, I'd recommend you go ahead and watch that, but if not, I'll get you up to speed real quick. Essentially, my first job in IT was as an Air Force officer, but during that time I studied for and achieved my PMP, which is what we're talking about today. And it really did help me get my next job, which is at Mayo Clinic as an IT Associate Project Manager. And then from there, things just kind of snowballed into me getting into security, and here I am. So now that's not to say that's a conventional route into cyber. A lot of folks do start with a more technical background, either as like an IT help desk analyst or maybe working as a network engineer. That's definitely more of a traditional route. But I think you can enter cyber from a variety of lanes, and one of those is from having exposure to a lot of IT projects that interface with the security team, kind of learning the ins and outs of how IT and cybersecurity relate to each other. And then, layering on top of that some technical certifications and kind of coming at it from the other side of things, which is what I did. And that being said, I just kind of want to talk about the cert and what it is, who might be ready for it, and how to go about achieving it. So let's get started. So if you're new to exploring this certification, one of the best places to start is just at the institution's website. Of course, this is Project Management Institute, or PMI, so it's pmi.org. They offer several different flavors of certifications. I think some of them are more related to Agile, or even there's some construction specific ones, I guess. There's the portfolio and the program levels, which are higher levels than just your project management. But a good starting point for most people who have done any type of professional work and can log the hours, and we'll talk about that in a minute, is probably the project management professional. So speaking of hours, you can see that they require 3 to 5 years of professional experience in order for you to be able to sit for this. The member price is $425, full price is $675. So as is the case with many of the exams, it's not cheap, but it does pay off. And you can see that here with 33% of PMP certification holders reporting higher than median salaries than those without PMPs. There's 1.5 million PMP holders worldwide, including the top countries of China, US, and Canada. But let's get to the meat of it, which is what you're going to need as far as requirements in order to become a PMP beyond just passing the exam. So you can see set A requirements here. You would be, if you just have a high school education or a secondary school diploma, they require a minimum of 60 months or 5 years of experience leading, managing projects within the past 8 years, 35 hours of project management education and training, or you can also meet those if you get their CAPM, which I think is their more entry-level certificate. If you go through PMI authorized on-demand PMP exam prep or instructor-led PMP courses. So that's all to get your 35 hours. Set B is going to apply to a lot of folks who have a bachelor's degree. You can see the requirements for the work experience go down significantly to 36 months, 3 years of which have to be leading or managing projects within the past 8 years. The education requirement doesn't change. Or you can see Set C requirements, which is those who have a bachelor's degree or higher from a GAC accredited program. That cuts it down to 24 months or 2 years of experience leading and managing projects, and you still need that 35 hours. So I actually had to look up what that GAC accredited program is, and it looks like it stands for the Global Accreditation Center for Project Management Education Programs. So there's a list of over 190 of them, and if you click on Browse here on their website, you can see they're located all over the world, a lot of them in the United States, obviously. But that would kind of definitely help you cut down on the hours if you're pursuing that route. Otherwise, it's really not that much of a jump for you to just get the additional year of experience or 12 months of experience in managing projects in the real world. So We'll talk about what qualifies as real world experience and kind of what I did. But yeah, that'll be the next thing we'd cover. So let's head over to ChatGPT real quick and just ask, what is the type of work experience that qualifies for the PMP hours? And it says, to qualify for the PMP certification, your work experience must involve leading or directing projects. Here's a breakdown of what counts. So project leadership and direction, which is including managing tasks, resources, timelines, or budgets, leading project teams or sub-teams, overseeing specific phases of a project. It could be across any industry, so IT, construction, healthcare, marketing, finance, education. They do not need to follow a specific methodology, either agile or waterfall. Professional non-overlapping project work. Experience must be non-overlapping. You can't count 2 projects during the same time frame. They can be internal projects or client-facing. And you have to show that you were working in the 5 PMP domains, which are initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. It is true that you need to show leadership, but you don't have to have had the title project manager. So that's kind of what I did when I reported my hours. I had a lot of hours as an aviation electronics technician through over 3.5 years of managing mini projects for maintenance, as well as some work center initiatives such as calibration, like the training for the work center, some Lean Six Sigma type projects where we tried to streamline our operations. So if you can document it clearly and have the evidence to back up that you were working in some sort of a project methodology while you were doing your work, it's really not a big hurdle to get this requirement knocked out. So mind you, I did sit for this exam quite some time ago. I achieved my certification in 2016, so almost 9 years ago, a little over 9 years. We probably have seen some changes over the years to the content of the exam, so I kind of want to just search that here on the video. What is the current set of domains on the PMP exam? So it looks like there's 3 domains. That's quite different from when I took it, but people, processes, and business environment, what each domain covers. So people is 42%, focusing on leadership, building and empowering teams, stakeholder engagement, conflict resolution, coaching, motivation, and collaboration skills. Process is 50%, which is centered on the technical side of project delivery, planning, execution, monitor and control, project integration, scope, schedule, cost, quality, risk, procurement, and adaptive/hybrid methodologies. And then 8% business environment, addresses alignment of projects with organizational strategy, benefits delivery, compliance, governance, and facilitating organizational change. So it looks like they are going to expect another release of the PMBOK, which is the Project Management Body of Knowledge, which will be from Guide 7 to Guide 8. That might occur later this year or in 2026. Notably, upcoming updates are expected to emphasize emerging technologies, sustainability, leadership, and strategic business integration. But no changes to the domains have been confirmed for now. So now that we've talked about the work experience, let's talk about how to get those pesky 35 hours of training. So you have a couple of options. Some of them, directly through the PMI website. They offer instructor-led training. They offer, authorized on-demand exam prep. This is going to be probably your most pricey option, to be honest. You're going to end up spending anywhere upwards of like $900 just to sit for these 35 hours. The benefit is it's instructor-led, so if you learn best that way, maybe it's worth the investment. But honestly, what I would do is, I'm a big advocate, as you might know if you've seen my other videos, of Udemy. You could just go over here, type in PMP 35 hours, and you'll find courses in the neighborhood of $20, even $14, where they're that 35-hour course, and they will meet that requirement for you, as well as help you practice for the exam. So that's the route I would go, is try to save your money. you're going to be spending a lot on the certification itself just to sit for it. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend spending upwards of $800 for an instructor-led course, but that's just me. Now, I think it's also always a good idea to augment any video or in-person training you have with a good textbook. Not only is it going to serve you well while you're studying for the exam, but it's something you can have on your bookshelf at home or in your office to refer back to if you forget some of the details of the methodology. So there's a lot out here. Rita McCauley I think she's one of the premier authors in the space. They're on their 11th edition here. You can see it gets really high reviews, 238, nearly a 5-star rating. There's one here called PMP Exam Prep Simplified, and it actually looks like it includes a 35-hour e-learning course, which might knock out both requirements at once for you. So definitely shop around, Amazon or your favorite book retailer. Wouldn't hurt to pick up a copy of the actual PMBOK guide. This is the 7th and most current edition. That's a good resource to have. And I think if you're a member, you might get a digital copy of this. If you're a member of PMI, you can have a digital copy of that as well. So again, just augment your video courses or your in-person training course with a good textbook. So back to some content-related stuff as far as what you'll see on the exam. I'm sure it's changed again since I took it in 2016, but some of the principles remain the same. You have to know the different phases of a project life cycle. All projects start with a planning phase, and then they get into their execution phase, a monitoring and controlling phase, and then a closing phase. And there's different, items or actions that you're supposed to take in each of those phases. For example, when you're in your planning phase, you're going to do a lot of the requirements gathering, and there's specific ways that you're supposed to go about doing that. You're going to have to identify who your stakeholders are and create like a stakeholder, management plan. You're going to have a communication plan for, who's responsible for what and how do lines of communication work within the team and externally. You're going to have to work on things like cost and understand a work breakdown structure, how to break down the work into smaller segments, and then use things like a Gantt chart, which is a tool, that project managers love to use to kind of lay out the work and show where dependencies are. It gets really, really interesting, and it's actually very useful stuff. It's not just a certification that you have just to have it. It does kind of create a whole new way of looking at work, and it's an interesting cert to say the least. So this being an InfoSec channel, you might be wondering at this point, well, what's the purpose of this and how can it actually help in cyber? So I think I just want to ask ChatGPT, how could a PMP be useful for a cybersecurity career? It says it can be highly valuable in a cybersecurity career, particularly if you're moving into leadership, governance, or strategic roles. So it helps you, number one, to bridge technical and business goals. So things like risk management, compliance, aligning security with business priorities, teaching you how to translate security objectives into business value, communicate risks and ROI or return on investment to executives and stakeholders, drive security initiatives that support organizational strategy. And then secondly, it talks about managing the actual projects. So you could do things like a SIEM or SOAR implementation and project manage your way through that. Incident response playbook development, compliance initiatives, migrations. It'll enable you to scope, plan, and execute these projects efficiently, lead cross-functional teams of IT, legal, HR, manage constraints such as time, cost, quality, scope, and risk. And it goes on. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you get the gist that having this under your belt and having a proven track record of maybe managing some projects with the methodology taught by PMI is going to make you stand out among your peers, and it's going to give you that edge that you might be looking for. And again, like I said, it may be your route into cybersecurity is more of a winding route through an IT project manager role where you interface with security and gradually layer those certifications on if you want to become more technical. If not, if you're looking to become manager level, of course, having this is kind of like a mini MBA in a way because it deals with the business aspects, it deals with budgeting, it deals with scheduling. It's a highly sought after cert. I know it was at the time that I got it in 2016, and I think it still is, as far as I know. But even so, there are other certifications that may be more suitable from PMI, depending on the nature of the work you're doing. Again, some of those being like the Agile Certified Professional, which is great for software development. Everything is done in a very agile fashion, and even the way cybersecurity teams tend to work, there's a lot of focus on agile. Delivering in 2 week sprints, knowing how to do a Kanban board, that kind of thing, which may be touched on briefly in the main PMP exam, but you'll probably get more of that flavor if you were to take the PMI ACP or Agile Certified Practitioner. So kind of bringing this in for a landing, I did prompt chat here about how long is the PMP and what is the pass rate. The exam duration is 180 questions to be completed in 3 hours and 50 minutes. Among those 5 questions, 5 of those questions are unscored pretest items, so you're actually graded on 175. You can take 2 10-minute breaks after questions 60 and 120, and they don't publish an actual pass rate, but the approximate, this was released way back in 2005, they released one of 61%, so who's to say if it's gone up or down since then. Anecdotal data suggests about a 60 to 65% pass rate for first timers. But don't be alarmed by that. If you study sufficiently and you drill yourself on some of the more memory intensive things, you can definitely pass it. I did in my first attempt, and it was my first major certification, so I was pretty proud of that. But yeah, just don't let any of that stop you from pursuing it. I think it's a great thing to have in any industry, whether you're in IT, whether you're in construction or marketing or anything where there's project-oriented work. You're going to be able to step in and make a big influence in your environment that way. So just, yeah, definitely if you're interested in taking it and you have more questions, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. We can start a conversation. I'm happy to just offer any more insights or advice. Happy to hear if there's actual people out there listening who already hold the cert. Have you found it useful for you in your career, and what has it done for you as far as opening doors and things like that? So again, we'll probably cut this short here, but if you made it all the way to the end, I really do appreciate you watching. If you could just remember to like and comment, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. Going to make a lot more content about cybersecurity, about artificial intelligence, about different certifications or concepts within those certifications. So really excited to have you on this journey, and I appreciate you watching this long. So this is InfoSecLuke signing out.